Near the end of her life, Lucille Ball faced something she could no longer laugh her way through. The woman who broke every rule in Hollywood, built television comedy from the ground up, and hid pain behind perfect timing, was suddenly vulnerable. Her final TV comeback didn't bring the closure she hoped for, and when she sat down for her last interview, the mask finally slipped. What she revealed about love, loss, and regret stunned those in the room and left audiences in tears. This is the heartbreaking truth behind Lucille Ball's final years and the moment that changed everything. To understand why that final moment cut so deeply, you have to go back long before the fame, to a childhood shaped by loss, instability, and emotional scars that Lucille Ball carried with her long before the cameras ever rolled. Lucille Ball was born on August 6, 1911, in Jamestown, New York, the first child and only daughter of Henry and Desiree Ball. Her father worked as a Bell telephone lineman, a job that kept the family constantly on the move from New York to Montana to New Jersey. But when Lucille was just 3 years old, her world shattered. In 1915, while living in Michigan, her father died suddenly of typhoid fever at only 27. Though she was too young to fully grasp the loss, one haunting memory stayed with her forever. A bird trapped inside their house that same day, an image that later became the source of her lifelong fear of birds. Pregnant and suddenly widowed, Lucille's mother gave birth to her brother Fred and returned the family to New York, where Lucille's childhood truly took shape. She and Fred were raised with the help of their grandparents in the small summer village of Celeron. Their crowded home became a place of deep family bonds, especially with her cousin Cleo, who would remain close to Lucille throughout her life and later work behind the scenes on her shows. Years later, Celeron would honor Lucille by renaming her childhood street Lucy Lane. Celeron was also where Lucille's imagination came alive. She spent hours at nearby Celeron Park watching vaudeville acts, stage shows, and performers who planted the first seeds of her dream to entertain. Even then, she was drawn to the stage, but stability never lasted long. After her mother remarried, Lucille and her brother were sent to live with their step-grandparents, whose rigid household left emotional scars. Mirrors were forbidden, and a simple moment of curiosity, being caught looking at her own reflection, ended in harsh punishment. Lucille later said those years shaped her deeply, leaving insecurities she carried long after the laughter began. Change followed Lucille Ball everywhere, but it was one unexpected moment that gave her life direction. At 12, her stepfather encouraged her to audition for a local chorus line connected to his Shriner group. When Lucy stepped onto the stage for the first time, something clicked. Performing wasn't just entertaining, it made her feel noticed and valued. After years of criticism and restraint, applause felt like acceptance, and in that moment she understood what she wanted more than anything else. Life, however, remained unstable. In 1927, financial troubles forced her family to sell their home and move into a small apartment back in Jamestown. The setback was painful, but Lucy held tightly to her dream. That brief taste of the stage stayed with her, pushing her forward, even as circumstances pulled her back. Her early pursuit of acting was anything but smooth. As a teenager, her mother, concerned about Lucy's personal life, used her interest in performing to redirect her future, enrolling her in the John Murray Anderson School for the Dramatic Arts in New York. One of her classmates was Bette Davis, but Lucy's experience there was discouraging. Teachers told her she lacked talent. Feedback, she later said, taught her nothing but fear. Still, rejection only hardened her resolve. By the late 1920s, Lucy turned to modeling to survive, working for fashion designer Hattie Carnegie, who urged her to dye her hair blonde, a decision that would later define her look. Just as momentum began building, she was struck with rheumatic fever and forced to stop working for nearly 2 years. Even then, she refused to quit. In the early 1930s, Lucy returned to New York, taking any job she could, from modeling to working as a cigarette girl, while auditioning under the stage name Diane Belmont. Broadway roles came and went quickly. Stability remained elusive, but persistence paid off when she landed a small film role in Roman Scandals in 1933. That opportunity brought her to Hollywood, where she began accumulating minor parts throughout the decade. She worked alongside legends like the Three Stooges, the Marx Brothers, Fred Astaire, Ginger Rogers, and Katharine Hepburn. In 1936, Lucille Ball landed a role in the stage comedy Hey Diddle Diddle, hoping it would finally open the door to Broadway. Instead, production problems and internal disagreements shut the show down after just 1 week. Refusing to stall, Lucy pivoted to radio, joining The Phil Baker Show and later The Wonder Show with Jack Haley. It was there she met Gail Gordon, beginning a creative partnership that would last half a century. Her film career continued into the 1940s with roles in Dance, Girl, Dance, and Too Many Girls, where she met Desi Arnaz. The two fell in love, even as Lucy found herself typecast as the queen of the B-movies, steadily working but rarely taken seriously. Still, she kept pushing. Everything changed in 1948 when Lucy starred in the CBS radio hit My Favorite Husband. When the network considered adapting it for television, Lucy agreed only if Arnaz played her on-screen husband. Executives doubted audiences would accept the pairing, but Lucy and Desi proved them wrong with a wildly successful stage act. In 1951, I Love Lucy premiered, and television was never the same. The show became a cultural phenomenon, even as their real marriage quietly strained under fame, distance, and Arnaz's infidelities. Lucy and Desi also made history behind the scenes. They insisted on filming in high-quality 35mm and accepted lower salaries in exchange for ownership of the episodes. That decision turned out to be revolutionary. In 1957, CBS bought back the rights, allowing the couple to purchase and transform RKO into Desilu Studios. Lucy became the first woman to run a major television studio, overseeing groundbreaking series like Star Trek, Mission Impossible, and The Untouchables. Though success followed, setbacks never disappeared. Health issues cut short her Broadway run in Wildcat, and later projects met mixed results. Still, Lucy kept working, starring in The Lucy Show, Here's Lucy, and films like Yours, Mine, and Ours and Mame. She mentored younger performers, including Carol Burnett, whom she supported until her final days. Even after a heart attack in 1988, Lucy continued appearing publicly, earning a standing ovation at the Academy Awards in 1989. She never stopped trying to create, perform, and connect. In the 1940s and 1950s, fear ruled America. The so-called Red Scare convinced millions that communism was quietly infiltrating the government, schools, and especially Hollywood. Led by Joseph McCarthy, accusations spread rapidly, careers collapsed overnight, and blacklists destroyed lives. Writers, actors, and artists were interrogated, fired, or silenced. In that climate, even a rumor could be fatal. And eventually, that fear reached Lucille Ball. Lucy's trouble traced back to 1936, long before she was a television icon. That year, she registered to vote and listed her party as communist, something she later explained was done to please her grandfather, a committed socialist whose approval mattered deeply to her. Her mother and brother did the same. Lucy even signed a statement supporting a communist candidate for state assembly, though she maintained it was symbolic, not ideological. She consistently said she never attended meetings, embraced the beliefs, or actively participated in the party. Years later, those old records resurfaced. Suspicion grew when a Hollywood writer claimed that a communist meeting had once been held at Lucy's home, allegedly with her permission. The claim was never proven, but it fueled speculation. The press amplified the uncertainty, and the public was left guessing what was true. By 1953, the controversy exploded. A Los Angeles newspaper ran a headline in red ink declaring that Lucille Ball had been red in 1936. In that era, the label was explosive. Rather than hide, Lucy confronted it head-on. She voluntarily testified before the House Un-American Activities Committee, explaining that her registration had been a family gesture, not a political conviction. She denied ever knowingly hosting meetings or supporting communist activity and said any use of her name had happened without her consent. Her testimony was forwarded to J. Edgar Hoover, whose office reviewed her file. The conclusion was clear. There was no evidence to justify further investigation. Lucy was officially cleared, but the controversy left a lasting mark on Lucille Ball's life. Even after her name was officially cleared, the mere association with communism caused some people to question her loyalty and character. In the climate of fear that dominated the era, the risk to her career was enormous. One accusation could have erased everything she had built. Yet Lucy refused to retreat. She continued working, her audience stayed loyal, and I Love Lucy remained a phenomenon. Though the suspicion lingered quietly, she endured, proving her resilience during one of Hollywood's most dangerous periods. Behind her public success, however, personal pressure was mounting. Fame brought expectations that followed her home. Lucy experienced multiple miscarriages before finally giving birth to her first child, Lucy Arnaz, in 1951, just weeks before turning 40. A year later, she welcomed her son, Desi Arnaz Jr. At the height of I Love Lucy's popularity, she and Desi Arnaz made a bold decision to incorporate her real pregnancy into the show, something television had never done before. The move was controversial. Networks avoided even saying the word pregnant, settling instead on expecting after religious leaders gave approval. The episode, titled Lucy is enceinte, aired the same day Lucy gave birth in real life and drew more than 44 million viewers, becoming a historic television moment. For a brief time, their personal joy and professional triumph aligned, but the cracks were already forming. In 1956, Lucy, Desi, Vivian Vance, and William Frawley appeared together on a Bob Hope television special, the only time the full cast appeared together in color. Off-camera, the pressure of running Desilu Studios and sustaining a perfect public image was taking its toll. As their business expanded, their marriage quietly unraveled. The marriage that had defined both her personal life and her public image finally came to an end in 1960. Just one day after Desi Arnaz's birthday, and shortly after filming the final episode of the Lucy-Desi Comedy Hour, Lucille Ball filed for divorce. This time, there would be no reconciliation. She told the court that life behind closed doors had become unbearable, far removed from the joyful marriage audiences believed in. The divorce was finalized on May 4, 1960. Even so, Lucy and Desi maintained a respectful, affectionate relationship, speaking kindly of one another until Desi's death in 1986. After the split, Lucy's work subtly mirrored her reality. In her post-divorce television roles, she no longer played wives, only widows, an unspoken line she never crossed. In 1961, while starring in the Broadway musical Wildcat, she met comedian Gary Morton. 13 years younger and unfamiliar with I Love Lucy, Morton connected with her instantly. They married later that year, and Lucy found a quieter, steadier happiness. She brought Morton into Desilu, taught him the business, and later promoted him to producer. In private letters, she admitted she never expected to love again, but was grateful she had. Lucy remained fiercely protective of her children, offering blunt opinions about her sons' relationships, including romances with Patty Duke and Liza Minnelli. Her humor stayed sharp, her instincts strong, and even as she aged, she refused to fade quietly. In 1986, Lucy made one last attempt to reclaim television with a new sitcom, Life with Lucy. Created by longtime collaborators Bob Carroll Jr. and Madeline Davis, and backed by producer Aaron Spelling, the show cast Lucy as a widowed grandmother co-running a hardware store with a gruff partner played by Gail Gordon. Expectations were high, but the response was not. Airing on ABC rather than CBS, the series failed to connect with critics or audiences. Only 8 of the 13 filmed episodes ever aired. For the first time in her career, Lucy faced rejection from the medium she had helped create. The cancellation cut deeply. Friends said she took it as a personal loss, a painful realization that television had changed, and that even a legend could be left behind. In 1989, Lucille Ball made one of her final public appearances at the Academy Awards, walking onto the stage arm in arm with Bob Hope. The audience rose to its feet, applauding for more than a minute. It was a moment of deep respect and recognition. Lucy smiled and waved, but those close to her noticed how fragile she looked. The energy that once filled a room so effortlessly was fading, even as the admiration remained overwhelming. By then, Lucy had largely retreated from public life, spending her days at home in Beverly Hills with her husband, Gary Morton. Still, she never truly disconnected. She stayed close to friends like Carol Burnett and remained in touch with the widower of her longtime co-star Vivian Vance. She continued to follow the entertainment world from a distance, her wit intact even as her health quietly declined. True to form, she rarely complained and refused to let others see how much she was struggling. One of the most emotional moments of her final years happened privately. Just 2 days before Desi Arnaz passed away, Lucy called him. It wasn't public, planned, or meant for history, but it became legendary nonetheless. Over the phone, she repeated 3 simple words: "I love you." Their daughter, Lucy Arnaz, later said that moment reshaped her understanding of love and loss. Despite everything they had endured, the bond between Lucy and Desi never disappeared. That final call became their true goodbye, quiet, honest, and filled with grace. After Lucy's death on April 26, 1989, she was cremated and initially laid to rest at Forest Lawn Cemetery near her mother. Years later, her remains were moved to Lakeview Cemetery, honoring her wish to return home. It was a peaceful ending for a woman who had lived boldly, loved fiercely, and never stopped trying. As Lucy once said, she preferred to regret the things she did rather than the ones she didn't. And her life, even at the end, stayed true to that belief.